and welcome to These Guys Got Next, our NBA basketball podcast where we deliver our hot takes and analysis from the bench. I'm Elijah Fa'afew, he's Ravindu Pathirana, and Rav, how is everything going on your end? It's summer's pretty much here now, so I hope you're enjoying the weather out there.
Yeah, man, sweltering heat. Yeah, looking forward to kicking back at a couple of beaches. How about you?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm ready to hit the beach or at least go outside for some fresh air. But hey, for the love of NBA and for the love of our listeners, this is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to have a bit of a mid-season review. It's not even mid-season, but I guess a review of sorts at the
Pre-Christmas break
moment.
review.
Yeah, pre-Christmas review as a little treat or as a little Christmas present for our listeners out there. Some of the moments, the teams or the players who have captured our attention during this campaign. And yeah, we're just going to list off what sort of caught our eye so far this season. And of course, we'll just dive right into it. First things first, our biggest surprise this season. Ravi, we've split this into teams and players. We'll start with teams. Which team has been your biggest surprise so far this season?
I'm gonna go the Cavs, just solely because they went on that 15 game win streak. Man, that's awesome. It was on par with the Warriors, just shy of the Warriors, in 2015-16. But yeah, man, like that, I generally wasn't expecting it. How about yourself?
It's the Golden State Warriors, only because I didn't pick them to be a playoff contender at all,
Hmm.
and they've pretty much proven me wrong. Steph Curry, Draymond, and one of the deepest rosters in the NBA, as they've proven. Their heavy rotation that they have of around, I mean, it's double figures the number of players they use each game, and Steve Kerr's really made the most of a lot of those guys who are riding the bench and gotten some action out of Kaminga and Wiggins and a lot of contributors there. So that's probably my surprise this season in terms of the teams. In terms of individuals, which player has been the sort of you know the player that stood out to you so far and that's sort of surprised you?
Peyton Pritchard. I wasn't expecting the Celtics to add a prolific scorer, versatile player, as he is. Like, because last season's we knew him being just a shot chucker at the late in the quarter, hitting those half court buzzer beaters. Now he's turning out to be a really solid scorer. Last season he averaged 9.6 points, 3.2 boards, and 3.4 assists. This season 16.5, 3.3, and 3.5. It's just on 43.2% shooting, which is insane considering he's on track to have a historic season. He's made 96 threes so far this season, and he's only second behind Anthony Edwards, who has 103. So a high chance for him to have a hell of a season like Steph Curry did back in 14-15 or 15-16 even.
Yeah, for me, it's Dyson Daniels, the great barrier thief, as he's come to know this season. Um, I'm sure before the season, a lot of people had no idea who he was. He was a throw-in in that DeJounte Murray trade when DeJounte went to New Orleans, and the Hawks got Dyson Daniels in return. And what a player he's turned out to be! What a defender he's turned out to be! Turned out to be 3 steals currently, leading the league. Uh, he won the Defensive Player of the Year award for in the NBA, which is an award I had no idea about. Apparently, they just introduced it last month, so probably just to note how as dominant Dyson Daniels has been, and he's been a key reason as to why Atlanta have proven to be a surprise themselves this season with the number of high caliber teams they've managed to beat this season. I guess in terms of some honorable mentions, any other teams or players that really um, caught you by surprise?
Yeah, sticking with the Lucky Charms theme, the Celtics like taking 51 threes a game on average, 51.3, if my memory serves me right. The Nets being the eighth seed, even though they don't have any prolific stars, and they're looking to tank essentially, play capture the flag. Um, Atlanta beating the Cavs twice. That was a big surprise. And like you mentioned, the Warriors as well. Like, yeah, wasn't expecting them to be this good.
And I guess
How about
another
you? Yeah.
surprise in terms of a team, but for all the wrong reasons, is the Pelicans and all the injuries that they've managed to have. And they rolled out a lineup, one of the great lineups of all time, with Alfred Payton and Brandon Boston and Eves Missy and a couple of other guys who I can't even remember because that's how memorable they are as players. But And I guess the 76ers as well have been a massive surprise for the wrong reasons, but we'll touch on them. We'll touch on them soon enough. In terms of players, I guess guys like Franz Wagner and Karl Anthony Towns have delivered and sort of taken that next step in terms of them becoming superstars. Franz managed to step in place of the injured Paolo Banchero, and he's helped with this Magic team. And Cat as well. I think the way he's managed to gel with Jalen Brunson and turn the Knicks into this offensive juggernaut has been amazing. Biggest disappointments this season, uh, Rav. Which team has really disappointed you this season?
This should come as no shock to any of our fans. It's the Philadelphia 76ers, currently sitting at 12th seed. I'm expecting them to be a top three or top four based on our predictions. Yeah, that's my one. Yourself?
I'm going to go the Minnesota Timberwolves just because of the way that you know things were looking good for them after reaching the conference finals last year. We thought they were going to run it back with the same squad, and then Cat got traded during the offseason. And then they got Julius Randle and DiVincenzo in return. It doesn't seem as though the trade has worked out well so far. But yeah, probably not. They should be up there in the West in terms of a top four team, but currently they're sort of middle of the road. So very underwhelming so far. In terms of players, who's been the biggest disappointment for you?
I'm going to go Tyrese Halliburton, and yeah, he's in my fantasy team. It was my first pick this year. And unfortunately, yeah, he had a 20 and 10 season last year, and off the back of the hamstring injury and rumors about a back injury, he's now down to being 17 and 8. Um, yeah, that's really sad to see, and it's a reflection of how the Pacers are performing as well. Who have you gone for?
Yeah, I guess in line with the Timberwolves being a disappointment, Dante DiVincenzo, as I mentioned before, the trade so far hasn't really panned out. DiVincenzo is probably one of the key reasons why his amazing shooting from last season has uh, gone down, and we've noted before about why that's the case. He's taking less catch and shoot threes, and he's having to generate a bit more offense, which is really impacting him. So, Dante DiVincenzo. Any other disappointments you've seen throughout the league?
Yeah, I think Phoenix aren't performing as well as we thought. Because we predicted, I think they were meant to be the fourth seed, but right now sitting just in play-in range. Unfortunately, Kings as well sitting 11th at the moment. But yeah, just really hope that DeRozan would add some sort of spark to this team, particularly in the regular season, giving them a good position for the playoffs.
Yeah,
Anyone that stands out to you?
yeah. I was just going to touch on the Suns because
Mm,
I think the big reason for that has been the fact that KD hasn't played in a lot of games, and they're terrible without KD,
mm.
which I wouldn't think that would be the case because Devin Booker's there. I don't think Devin Booker he's been okay this season, but you'd think that he'd be able to take on the load left behind by KD. That hasn't been the case, and the Suns have struggled without KD as a result. We're just going to check in with some of our predictions we made prior to the season in terms of individual awards and playoff predictions. We'll start off with the MVP award and sort of see where our picks are trending at the moment. So, Rav, you and I both picked Luka Doncic to be the MVP. How do you think he's faring so far, and how do you think he sort of compares to some of the other MVP candidates?
I think he's there. Just the injury kind of let him down in terms of not being able to play a lot of games. Like he had his first triple double a few weeks ago. And yeah, it's just really interesting to see how this is all playing out. But in terms of comparing to everyone else, um, we've touched on this multiple times. The Joker's path to MVP as well as Giannis, just solely because the pieces around them aren't performing. But when you look at the ladder so far, it's Joker, SGA, Tatum, Giannis, Cat, and then Luca. But yeah, hoping Luca can pull a nice second half of the campaign this season.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's going to be tricky to catch either Joker or Giannis, the way those two are going at the moment. But Luca's there or thereabouts. He's just come back from injury. So hopefully, and the Mavs are actually doing pretty well at the moment as well. So if the Mavs can keep that up and Luca puts himself into contention, then that will be great to see. In terms of the Depoy Defensive Player of the Year, I went Chet. I think had it not been for the injury, the big hip slash pelvic injury that he had after that awkward landing, he'd definitely be up there because right now OKC are the number one offense, or sorry, number one defense, I should say, or one of the top defenses in the league right now, and usually Chet would be rewarded for that. But yeah, I think injury has definitely played a part in him not being up there. For you, you picked Wemby. How do you think Wemby's going so far? He leads the league in blocks, so that's definitely a nice bid from him.
Yeah, I mean the Spurs are on the trend as well. So especially if they can pull out another nicer second half, put them in kind of that 10, 11 seed, potentially push the play in. That will allow Wemby's case to win Depoy. But yeah, like based on how he was performing, I'm really gutted for Chet because yeah, I thought as the season progressed, that Chet was having a better chance, especially around the team that's built around him at OKC.
Rookie of the year, we both picked Zach Edey, and we thought it was going to be quite comfortable too. But unfortunately, due to injury and probably the fact that he hasn't even been the best rookie on his team, he's sort of down there in the rankings a little bit. Um, Sort of what do you make of Zach Edey, and I guess what do you make of some of the other top rookies so far this season?
Yeah, I think once he comes back from his left ankle sprain, he'll have a lot of impact on this team again. However, saying that, within the Grizzlies themselves, we've got Brandon Clark's back, Santi Aldamas performing quite nicely as well. It's just how he fits in with those two guys performing that will really determine his Rookie of the Year race. But like we've spoke about, Jared McCain stepping up in the absence of Tyrese Maxey, Stephon Castle, who's had a nice little resurgence over the last couple of weeks. Jalen Wells as well, like in the Grizzlies. And shout out to Yves Missy, like taking really stepping up in the absence of all the other players due to injuries. Any thoughts
Yeah,
on that?
yeah. I mean, you pretty much summed those top contenders well. I think another guy that we talked about highly prior to the season, but hasn't really shown out, is Reed Shepherd,
Hmm,
and I think he hasn't just. It's really just because he hasn't had the minutes
the
over in
minutes, yeah.
Houston, and I think part of it's because Ime Udoka doesn't really trust Reed as a defender quite yet, um, especially given that the Rockets are one of the top defenses in the league. So, but Reed, his time will come eventually. Sixth man of the year, I went Miles McBride. I think he's been a bit, he's had his moments this season, but probably not as consistent as you'd like to see from a sixth man of the year contender. I don't really see him taking over or yeah, going past some of the top six men of the year contenders. You went with Nas Reed. How do you think he's been faring this season?
Not good. Gonna be honest, as a six man, just I think that trade played a bit of a part. Um, Even still, I expected with his offensive ability or what he's done in the past, he's able to step up and support Randall and Gobert in the front court. But yeah, now no man, like you think like Peyton Pritchard, right? Perfect example. Had a great resurgence, doing a supporting role in a contending team. Then we got someone like DeAndre Hunter come back from injury, averaging the most off the bench, 19.2 so far. Ty Jerome stepped up and helped the Cavs in their 15-game win streak. And also shout out to Russell Westbrook. Former MVP is doing a hell of a role for the Nuggets at the moment.
Yeah, and I think guys like Peyton Pritchard and Ty Jerome in particular, I think not much was mentioned of him last season because he was pretty much out for the whole year. I think he had a pretty serious ankle injury that kept him out for majority of the season. Now he's come back this season all fit and healthy, and he's showing to the rest of the league what he's capable of off the bench. So happy for a guy like Ty Jerome and Payne Pritchard shooting the lights out. And Russell Westbrook, good to see that he's managed to find or carve a role for himself over in Denver. Most improved player, I went Evan Mobley. I think he's been really good, really strong this season. Unfortunately, there's been quite a lot of players around the league who've also rapidly improved. You went Jalen Green. What do you make of your pick and I guess some of the other contenders in that award?
I think Jalen Green has been good, but not consistent enough. I think that's the main thing to take into consideration, especially when you think about guys like Franz Wagner before his injury. had a great stint. Dyson Daniels off the back of that trade we just mentioned him before. Norman Powell, addition by subtraction. Norman Powell was having a great run, and also Jalen Williams. He's having a great campaign as his number two to shape. So yeah, I don't think Jalen Green necessarily stands out amongst those names.
Yeah, yeah. I think the thing about the MIP is there's such an open award, or at least it's like open to interpretation of what most improved really means. But definitely all those names you just mentioned, and even our picks too, are definitely possible contenders, or at least worthy of being in the conversation. And coach of the year, I went Jason Kidd. I think the Mavs are doing okay at the moment. I don't think it warrants Jason Kidd to be coach of the year types levels, but um, I mean, you never know. I think Mavs can definitely improve. And you went Tom Thibodeau, which I think is not a bad shout given how the Knicks are going so far this season.
Yeah, I think he's definitely up there. But when you take in terms of the surprises we spoke about, the Rockets being up there, Ime Udoka has to get a bit of a pat on the back as well, so could potentially be in contention in that space. So yeah, I guess watch your space.
Yeah, and maybe someone like Taylor Jenkins as well over at Memphis as well. The way um, the Grizzlies are currently going. In terms of the playoffs, we'll just have a sort of a look at what we predicted. We won't specifically say where teams are, but um, we both went OKC to go to be at the top or to be the best team in the West, and I think that seems to be trending in the right direction. I guess with your picks that you made, what sort of stands out to you about what you had predicted prior to the season compared to now?
I think our top five are pretty much the same. Same teams except Phoenix and Denver just having a bit of a 4 and 5 swap. The Pelicans, man, I was really high on the Pelicans during preseason because I know what Deontay brings to the table. Everybody knows what Deontay brings to the table, but unfortunately, the injury surrounding this team hasn't helped their case, and currently sitting at the bottom of the West at the moment. So that's my biggest surprise or shock in terms of discrepancy, rather, in terms of the prediction versus what the actuals are. How about you? What sort of stood out and what's worked out for you?
Yeah, you talked about how our top five teams are pretty much similar, albeit in sort of different slots or different positions. Minnesota and Phoenix are probably two of the more underwhelming teams at the moment, but I think they can both improve as the season goes on. I'm quite happy with my pick of Houston being a playoff team and completely skipping the play-in, but securing that automatic playoff spot. Right now, they're up there in the Western Conference, so doing really well for themselves. So I'm really stoked and really happy about that. So I'd say at the moment, yeah, things are looking okay in terms of our predictions. And then over to the Eastern Conference, again, we both had Boston as our top contenders. Although Cleveland, who've probably been the standouts over in the East, and they had their 15-game winning streak. Yeah, I think I had them sort of top four prior to the season. Um, where did you sort of see Cleveland uh, before the season started? And I guess a chance for you to talk about some of your other picks in the East.
Yeah, I think from memory, I had Cleveland seventh or eighth. Just yeah, I just wasn't too sure about them, but there here we are, 15 game win streak later, top of the East. They're doing awesome, but yeah, we had Boston, New York, Philly third, unfortunately sitting at the bottom of the table because of everything that's happened around Embiid and PG being injured. Milwaukee, I had at fourth. Currently, yeah, they're okay, still within playoff contention. However, the biggest drop off is Indiana, just because the offense relies on Tyrese Halliburton's ability to play make and score as well. So that has definitely been disappointing. So hopefully Tyrese can turn things around and the rest of the Pacers team can turn things around.
Cool. And as always, I mean, there's still a long way to go in the season, so I'm sure the next time we check in, hopefully our predictions are a lot closer to where we would have liked or where we would have picked. So I'd say based on what we've chosen for the playoffs and the individual awards, I'd say it's been some hits, some misses, but yeah, no, I want to say there's been some outright shocking picks. Maybe Philly being third seed, but other than that, nothing too bad. Moving on to some of the moments that's captured our attention, funny, entertaining moments. Quotes. What's been your sort of your favorite quotes this season from either a player, a coach, a random, uh, so far this season?
Probably gonna have to censor this out. This is when the Raptors played the Knicks, and I think Josh Hart quoted this. Um, no, Josh Hart said that Jalen Brunson was like, "I'll take Grady Dick. I'll take the Dick." So that's yeah, that's for a
Yeah, I'm
little
not saying
chuckle. That
anything.
yeah, the 8-year old in me had a good chuckle. How about you? What's your favorite one?
I'm glad you said the quote, so someone can take that out of context unnecessarily. But for me, it's easy. Addition by subtraction from Norman Powell, which I think is um, talk about Paul George leaving the Clippers,
Mm,
and I think given the way that the Clippers and the Sixers are both panning out so far this season, uh, that's going to be one of the great quotes so far this season. I mean, the Clippers are doing awesome. The
mm.
guys who that they've brought in place of Paul George, Derek Jones, um, you know,
Kevin Porter
and
Jr. as well.
yeah, exactly, and all those
Mm,
other players have been contributing well, and they've surrounded James Harden with some great talent. So, yeah, and I guess as an honorable mention, Will Hardy, the Utah Jazz coach, when Dalton Knecht went off for what was it 37 points or something.
mm.
He said everybody in the gym knew that Dalton Knecht was going to shoot the next shot, with the exception of a few people. The problem was that those few people were on our team. That's a great moment from Will Hardy, and he's established himself as the most entertaining person on the Utah Jazz. So that's nice. What's some sort of other funny moments that from the season that sort of caught your eye?
I'm just gonna stick with Peyton Pritchard, man. Like when he was shooting the lights out early in the season, and he hit that shot towards the end of the third, I think, or the end of the second quarter, and the camera immediately cuts to Doc Rivers just on his like hunched over, just hands on his knees, just in disbelief. Yeah, that has to be one of the top moments so far in the NBA.
Yeah, and I think another one was when Giannis uh, this Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown's trying to. Giannis reached his hand out to Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown reached out, and then Giannis said, "Psych." Such little kiddie games there from
Mm,
Giannis, but you want to mess with the defending champions somehow, so that's probably one way to get under their nerve a little bit. Game of the season. What's been the best game for you to watch so far?
I'm gonna go the Rockets versus the Warriors in the semifinals for the NBA Cup. I like how defense is being played. Hence why it's a great defensive matchup this whole series. I guess the matchups they've had against each other this whole season has been really good, low scoring affairs on both counts. Um, yeah, that was an awesome game to watch. Just it was a bit unfortunate in terms of the way it was reffed in that last play. Probably shouldn't have been that foul, but all in all, the refs did let them play hard and didn't really call a lot. And it was really nice to see the offense flowing through Kuminga, particularly in that last kind of half of the fourth. And he's just showcasing what he has ability to put the ball in the bucket. And man, it just solidified. The Rockets are really good. They've got a really nice team. Like Fred VanVleet is elite in terms of what his ability to score and both dish the ball. A couple of nice defenders and Tari Eason and Armin Thompson. Jabari Smith Jr. is doing a hell of a job. And Şengün just stands out. Like, we've spoken about this quite a bit in terms of the teams are taking a hell of a lot of threes, but that was really nice, slowed, like playoff esque basketball where Şengün just worked his magic in the block, like looking like a Hakeem Olajuwon in a sense in terms of some of the footwork that he's able to do. So that was a really good game to watch. What was your game of the season so far?
For me, it's the Warriors Mavs. It's more so just like the moments in that game. Klay Thompson's return to Golden State, the employees and the fans wearing those white captains hats. The back and forth throughout the game between Steph and Klay was fun to watch. Both of them just messing with each other. And then Steph's final night after he hit that shot to clinch the win. Yeah, that was a great moment, and just the moment of passion there from Steph is what you
Mm.
like to see from our superstars. So, yeah, a lot of great moments in that contest between the Warriors and the Mavs. And that pretty much wraps up our review so far this season. Obviously, there's a long way to go in the NBA. Until then, we're going to take a little bit of a break here on These Guys Got Next. There's Christmas and New Year's coming up. We're going to go hit the beach, or I mean, I'm not sure what you have planned, Rav, but
Same,
I'm
mate.
gonna
Beach time.
get some fresh air. Of
Yeah.
course, it's beach time. But yeah, we're gonna be back in a couple of weeks or so. But hey, the NBA is still going to be going. We're still going to be keeping our eye on things. But until then, thanks so much for tuning in. And we got next in Matiwa.